Present.
Ms. Patrick?
Here.
Ms. Palamini?
Here.
Mr. Mutaveran?
Present. We have one public hearing this evening, and because of the way how we are meeting via teleconference, we had asked via all the public the press release that the residents of the camp submit comments to the city clerk for it to be included in the minutes. If there are additional comments that is coming in, I would ask the clerk to continue to compile it and to provide it to the council and to be included into the minutes. I would ask for the approval of the minutes of May 27, 2020. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Communication and a petition from the city clerk.
Communications presented to the City Council for Monday, June 8th, 2020. Under official, there were none. Under general, an email dated June 4th, 2020 from Kenneth Thurman regarding the poor conditions of the sidewalk on Central Parkway. An email dated June 5th, 2020 from David Toby asking the City Council to follow through on the lowered cost for the sidewalks on DeCamp Avenue as indicated in the letters that were handed out to the residents and an article in the newspaper. A letter from Ian Spencer and Laura McManus Spencer explaining their frustration with transparency and communication for the DeCamp Avenue sidewalk program. An email from Susan LeClaire requesting her sidewalk on DeCamp Avenue not be replaced. And an email from David Giacalone regarding the North Ferry Street pump station briefing held on June 1st, 2020. Under petitions, there were none.
Thank you. Committee reports from my colleagues.
Mr. Mutaveran?
Please go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you ask for committee reports?
Committee reports, yes.
No, general comments. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Privilege of the floor dealing with legislative agenda. Again, because we're meeting via teleconference, I ask the public to please submit your comments to the city clerk for it to be included in the minutes. Approval of the legislative consent agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, privilege of the floor regarding general city business. Again, we're meeting via teleconference. I encourage residents to please submit your comments to the city clerk for it to be included in the minutes. Thank you. Miscellaneous business from my colleagues.
Mr. President. Mr. Mutaveran?
Go ahead, Ms. Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a statement here about last week and the Black Lives Matter rally. Schenectady is lucky to have a police chief who listens to us, lucky to have police officers that will take a knee with us out of respect, and lucky enough to have many citizens who are committed to social justice. That being said, many other cities aren't so lucky. That's why it was important to me to attend the Black Lives Matter protest at Veterans Park on May 30th, along with my colleague, Councilwoman Porterfield. The rules that govern our City Council committee meeting agendas did not allow me the chance to comment about the protests last week, so I appreciate the opportunity to say a few words tonight. I attended the rally to condemn the systemic and pervasive racism that belies the fundamental American premise that all of us are equal and have a right to equal justice. Unfortunately, that promise doesn't ring true for everyone. And although we may not be able to change the world, I intend to learn about what we can do to guarantee that vision for every resident of Schenectady. First, though, I want to praise the organizers of the march and its participants for the peaceful but forceful protests that took place. The young people who made their voices heard especially impressed me with their passion and commitment. They reinforced the ideal that societal changes can be influenced without violence or divisiveness. I'd also like to thank Chief Eric Clifford for speaking out to condemn the brutality that caused the death of George Floyd and many others before him. It's no secret that the Schenectady Police Department of 25 years ago had major problems. The department has undergone many positive changes under Chief Clifford's leadership, and I value his commitment to continue looking for ways to build trust between the department and our residents. I'm proud to live in Schenectady, a city that has a police chief and officers who literally walked the talk during the protest, not only by speaking honestly and openly with participants, but also by joining in the march. These last few crazy months of quarantine for me have driven home the importance of human connection. When we feel connected to one another and value the worth of every individual, we come closer to interacting with one another from a place of love and respect. My faith tradition teaches fundamental values of loving one another and caring for those in need. We have a chance now to come together and act in ways that show we mean it. If you're interested in joining me to understand what changes we can make in our neighborhoods to make sure that all of us here in Schenectady are treated as equals, I invite you to let me know. My contact information can be found on the city's website at www.cityofschenectady.com, and my email is cpatrick@schenectadyny.gov. My cell phone number is 518-281-9946. Let's get together and talk, socially distanced, of course, to make sure all of us gain equal access to all that we need to value our self-worth. Things like access to food, safe and affordable housing, quality education and healthcare, meaningful work with sustainable wages, and unbiased justice. I hope to hear from you. For something completely unrelated, I want to give a big welcome back to our local small businesses that opened up today. I hope you get back to profitability quickly. And I also, as a final note, want to recognize the mayor's birthday is today. So happy birthday, Gary, and I hope you have a good night. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Mudavaren?
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Porterfield.
First of all, I want to acknowledge the death of George Floyd and for what has happened to him and his family. I don't think we can, it's like the elephant in the room, and I don't think we can not talk about that, especially what has happened and is happening all over the country. So unfortunately, it brings to a head some of the things that have just gone on in this community, in this city, in this state, in this country for years. And but I'm praying and hoping and believing that this will make a change. And it's not something that I've witnessed third hand, but something as a Black woman have experienced in my life. So I'm just believing that it's unfortunate that this has happened, but here we are. And so I'm praying that we will continue to work together as a city. I really want to say a real thank you to the organizers of the rally that happened last week. Michaela Foster, a very young woman, and this is not her first time doing that, brought together some folks along with Legacy Casanova, and those young people really organized that and were very peaceful, and from the outset continued to talk about how it was going to be peaceful and maintain that. And although during the rally there were some people who wanted to do otherwise, there were folks from our community, I can specifically say Damani Farley, who said this is not going to happen here. So the rally was peaceful, but there was a message that was being sent saying change needs to happen. I do have to thank Chief Clifford for listening with an open heart and an open mind, and to coming out, he and his officers, for interacting with the protesters. And not only that, also protesting themselves, realizing that what happened is not the way that he, as a leader of our police department, will have his community policed. So I want to thank him for that and recognize him for that. And for all the officers who do a good job on a day-to-day basis. It's terrible when one officer, or even in another state, makes it bad for everyone. But fortunately here, we did not let that spill over into violence. So again, I'm very, very grateful for the organizers, for the people that participated, every single one of them, and for those who, when there were agitators from the outside, who were not people who were really part of it, but just came to agitate, the people from our community stepped up and said, not here. It's not going to happen here, because at the end of the day, this is still our city. We live here, and when it's all over, said and done, and we still have to live here. So rather than having to spend the time building up or after violence, we can spend the time doing something positive and making the changes that need to happen within our community. There also want to say thank you also to the pastors that have been praying for weeks on end. And I know some of you knew that when we first started back early April, but that's continued to go on, and up until yesterday at the police department and the city hall as well. The other thing I would like to say is to store owners that we're past that now, and the boards on the windows make it look like a city under siege. And so since we've been very peaceful, since the city has been very peaceful, I think it sends the wrong message to continue to have boarded up stores. And so since we're all working together to make this, to beautify our city, I believe it is time for the boards to come down and for us to move forward as we've continued to do in our conversations with the police department. And let me also say that there will be a meeting with the police chief this week. The invitations will be sent out. It will be it will not be virtual, so therefore it will be limited capacity. But we will send out invitations to specific community leaders. And when we get at the limit, we will not be able to take anyone else. But again, the police chief is opening it up, and the NAACP is calling folks to the table so we can meet and talk and see what changes we need to make or to improve on what things we're doing well at this time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Mudavera?
Go ahead, Ms.
So I would also like to echo my colleagues, and thankful for all of the people that participated in a very peaceful rally over the Memorial Day weekend. And a big thank you to Chief Clifford, who did a fantastic job and, maintaining order. I'm very proud of our city at this point in time. And I echo Ms. Patrick's, if there's anyone else that would like to have a continued conversation, my cell is 518-858-4719. So thank you. Thank you to all the peaceful protesters. I also want to welcome back the small businesses. It's been a long time, and I know that we need to maintain our social distancing, and I know we need to maintain our masks. So if people could just remember that when they're out. I also want to remind everyone the census is still, it's still going on. So please get your census mailed back in. I also want to make sure that we wish our mayor a very happy birthday. So thank you, Mr. Mutivaran. Mr. Mutivaran?
Go ahead, Ms. Peraza.
Thank you. Certainly, I echo the words of my colleagues with regard to the peaceful protest in our community leaders and our police. But I also want to give a big shout out to Betsy Sandberg. She, along with her committee, was able to take the Kids Arts Festival virtual this year. Proctor's hosted 2 days worth of 3 shifts of volunteers that were very far apart. Everything was sanitized and masks, and we had a very involved protocol that we followed, but we were able to stuff 1,400 bags. 750 of those went to the Municipal Housing Authority in Albany, and the other 650 went to our very own Schenectady Municipal Housing Authority. And in the bags were all sorts of craft supplies. And then there was a series of videos that kids could tune in and watch. And our vans distributing the bags were met with great excitement. And it was a lot of work for Betsy and her committee. And I commend them because we certainly know kids need good, positive things to do these days because there's a lot of time to fill. So just a congratulations to everyone. And I understand that this week is Arts Week with Downtown Schenectady Improvement Corporation. So check their website for lots of really fun things happening this week. And finally, I'm pleased that our restaurants are able to operate and our small businesses are starting to get up and running. And I hope we'll continue to try to make it as easy as possible for people to have outdoor dining. Ultimately, I would love to see us drop our bureaucracy in getting some dining outdoors and set some rules and allow people to just as long as they observe those rules to have their dining, because we could all use a little bit of social time in a safe way. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Motivaran?
Go ahead, Mr. Palmini.
One of the items that we did forget to mention so far is this is Pride Month. So we look forward to the various celebrations that'll be going on in the city. And we look forward to those being well attended and a joyful time. Secondly, I'd like to echo the comments of Ms. Patrick and Ms. Zaluski-Wazunas. If people would like to reach out, certainly would love to be part of those discussions and moving the city forward. And my contact information is on the internet as well. Certainly we have a lot going on in this country at this time. And the murder of George Floyd has once again shown us the harassment and the threats that many African Americans receive in our country. This obviously is not American and is not the meaning of America. The rule of law is dependent on fairness and equality, and ensuring justice for all is everyone's responsibility. We really benefited by the peaceful protests that we had in our city. And it illustrated that if we want our society to be free of racism and violence, then each of us must have the ethical conduct that we want our justice system to represent. It showed the strength and the diversity of our city, and it was something for us all to be grateful for and proud of, but it's only the beginning and hopefully a short journey to getting to where we need to be. I'd also like to echo the small businesses being able to partially open up. Certainly, we look forward to the time where they're able to open up completely. And if there's anything that we as a council can do to assist, please don't hesitate to reach out. We know they went through quite the hardship through the pandemic, and hopefully they'll get back up to business and maintain a profitable business that they had once before. And lastly, I'd like to echo the happy birthday to the mayor, and thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank the colleagues for their gracious birthday wishes. I too want to echo largely members of the council set forth and Councilwoman Porterfield. The protesters here in Schenectady, raised some issues, showed unity a week ago Sunday, and as Marion pointed out, there were some people in the crowd whose motives were less than desirable, but it was Schenectady people who rose up and brought stability to that, so that we were able to conduct that in a manner that reflected well on the community. Chief Clifford's leadership, the men and women of the police department, providing stability. It's something that we should all be proud of, and that we're acknowledging the imperfections within the system and looking to go forward to again make Schenectady brighter and a stronger community. Marion talked about Damani Farley and Will Rivas. Again, a number of people who just stood up and made a difference in keeping the message going where they wanted to raise the issues and the just tragic death of George Floyd, but to do it in a manner that didn't further hurt people or damage property or create civil disobedience. So I thank them for that. And again, we look forward to moving that discussion forward. I want to remind people that the school board election was originally scheduled for tomorrow, where all the ballots had to be in. The governor's issued an executive order extending that because there were some technical problems within different school districts. So you actually have until next Tuesday. So if people have not voted in the school board election, you still have that opportunity, and hope that you'll follow up on that, because the city of Schenectady, it's roughly half your tax bill and does have a significant impact on the community. With that, I again thank the council and thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership. I want everyone to have a safe evening.
Thank you, Mayor McCarthy. And just to echo with regards to the school board, yes, it's very important that we remind residents to get out there and vote. I would like to encourage residents to please, with the extension to June 16th, I would encourage the residents to please complete the absentee ballot and return before the due date on June 16th, 5 p.m. Ballot boxes, you can mail it in or you can drop it off to several schools. There are a lot of information out there in the public and the social media in terms of the school location where you can drop these ballots, or you can mail them in. With regards to our first responder, again, I would like to extend a thank you to the first responder for the work they're doing during the COVID-19. And, you know, hats off to everybody who is on the front line, taking care of the people who are being tested and who need treatment. And I would encourage the public to, when you're out there, please wear your mask when necessary. My colleague spoke well on the unfortunate death of George Floyd. And we see that this is bringing our community and people together to call for justice. I want to thank the Schenectady organizer for the professional conduct from both sides, the police department with leadership under Eric Clifford, and the general public who protests in Schenectady, and the way how they carry themselves. It's such an example throughout Schenectady and throughout the country that we were many calls, some of us got email, and from people who were out of town, all the way from Orlando, that Schenectady was on the news, leading by example how the way people protest, the organizer, they conduct themselves. We are proud of them. You know, I have had the opportunity to reach out to one of the organizers to invite them to meetings, and I'm happy that they are taking up the offer and they're going to be meeting with our police chief. I would encourage them to come to the table and let's discuss. So let's continue the dialogue. It's very important. And I would like to give a shout out to Mayor McCarthy. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I ask for a motion to adjourn.
So
Motion
moved.
to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Stay well and good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good night.